Hello, everyone. I'm Colin Tessier of WrestleZone.com, joined by John Clark tonight to talk about WWE Monday Night Raw and a bunch of stuff that happened related to the show. John, it was a pretty crazy night tonight, huh?
Yeah, you could say some stuff went down.
We'll get into all that fun stuff and more. Just want to remind you all before we do this show, like everything we do here is available on all of our platforms: SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. You know where to find us. So, John, obviously we always talk about Raw, and we'll get into that. But I feel like the big story right off the bat. I think a couple minutes into the show, they announced a six-pack challenge for the main event. Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Naomi, Doudrop, Nikki ASH, and Asuka, the one that would earn a Raw Women's title shot. And then maybe a half hour later, they announced that Sasha Banks and Naomi have left the building. They had just left the building, and at first it was left very, very vague. And then we had the announcement the new main event would be just Becky versus Asuka, and the winner would still earn a title shot. And then very, very quickly, the whole thing just spiraled into this whole other mess. Where Sasha Banks and Naomi reportedly walked out, and that was what they first alluded to that during the show. And Corey Graves even said that they were unprofessional in doing so, which is interesting that they had said that during the broadcast. So I'm looking at the first report right now. So they walked out. I don't want to give away Fightful Select reported, and that's behind a paywall. But basically, Sasha Banks reportedly was upset about the creative for the match for the six-pack challenge. Vince McMahon reportedly unwilling to change it. Naomi was involved. Naomi reportedly was slated to win the match, which makes this even crazier. Naomi and Banks walked out, and then WWE, to make it even more crazy, WWE released a statement, which they never do. And basically, this statement says that Banks and Naomi walked into John Laurinaitis' office with the suitcases, placed the tag team title belts, now they are the reigning women's tag team champions, on his desk and walked out. For the WWE statement claims that says that Banks and Naomi claimed they were not respected enough as the tag team champions. And the statement even references how they had time to construct their match, which is interesting for a WWE release statement. And yeah, so they walked out. And now we don't really know. And then I should say another quote, another tweet from this one from WrestleVotes says that there's a lot more to this. Apparently, there's tension leading up to this all day. Both superstars were upset at something that transpired, but nobody has any idea what that is. And I don't really want to speculate on what that may be specifically. But my gosh, John, this is the craziest thing we've had happen during a show itself. Maybe other than when there was releases during SmackDown once. Other than that, in recent memory for me at least, I can't think of anything like this.
Oh man, this is pretty wild. This is unpredictable. This is quite honestly a mystery right now. We're speculating, but then we're not because we know part of it, but we don't really know one, both sides of the story, or two, the whole story. So we're only speculating and giving opinions based off of what we know.
Yeah.
I am probably not gonna have a lot of people happy with what I'm gonna say, but I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like that you walk out whenever you don't get your way. And I've been like this before, and it's a soft topic because you got people online on Twitter, whatever, they want to bring they want to bring race into it, they want to bring uh past history into it. I just want to talk about the situation at hand now and not bring in gender, race, history, anything like that. The fact of the matter is, they, from what we have seen, they are mad. They did not necessarily get their way, but they are mad at the creative direction. Now, if you look at the statement that WWE put out, they literally put towards the end that basically this is an act and the contracted wrestlers are supposed to do what we say under contract, which is true, regardless if you like it or if you don't like it. And
Right.
obviously, at least from what we understand, Sasha didn't like it. Now, if apparently Naomi was supposed to win the match, I don't understand. I don't think she would be upset about that. This might stem from maybe they don't respect the tag titles. They don't think they're serious. So we're just going to put Naomi into this filler match at Hell in a Cell that she's going to lose. Something along the lines of that. But I just take issue with her or them or whatever just leaving because they're not happy with the way the show is supposed to go. There's more to it than getting what you want. And there's been some history with Sasha Banks and not getting her way and being upset about it. She's taken some time off before for this. She's been there's just some history when it
Yeah.
comes to that. Uh, I don't know what this is going to lead to. If we see them again, when we see them again, the rumor was that they basically just like left their titles there and left. As
That was a
like
WWE
they're
statement that they left the titles with John Laurinaitis, so that was from
yeah.
WWE
So
themselves.
like, is that an indication that they have forfeited them, or could they be retired? Who knows? But I don't know where it goes next, and I don't know when we find out. I assume maybe early as tomorrow, more details will sort of trickle in. I assume that's the case,
Yeah.
but I don't know about you, Colin, but I'm not convinced that either of these two are going to be back anytime soon.
It's just a mess, both in terms of what we actually are hearing about this right now, in terms of trying to figure out what will happen next. I really don't know that. There's some thought that this might be a work, that this is something they're trying to, or some real situation they're trying to like capitalize on and try and make it some kind of storyline, which is possible, but it's just so weird. WWE never, especially these days, never releases any statements like that about a matter like this. So that, and some of the wording and some of the things they said in that statement were very weird to begin with. The fact that Banks and Naomi left the titles in that statement, that's what they said, left the tag team titles is weird, as you said. Like, don't know what that means for that. I don't know. It's just crazy. Lots of comments here. DJ says maybe they can go to AEW. I mean, if
well, first let me ask you this. First of all, do we agree that this is not a work?
it seems very real to me. Like
Okay.
there's enough like just weirdness and I don't know. I not to say I could tell if it was a work. I obviously I can't say that. I'm just saying like it feels real. And the way it came across in the show was so chaotic. Like it was not planned at all. Reportedly, they had to do like pre-tapes, and you could tell at some points like they probably planned a good chunk of time for the six pack match
because they were filling time.
Yeah, they had extra pre-tapes that you kind of tell they weren't really planned. So it just seemed very, very spur of the moment in that sense. So that's why I would necessarily not jump to thinking it was a work, but I am seeing that kind of floated around. Nesha says she's torn about it being a work or not. Kevin says it sounds like they quit. I don't know. You can walk out. That doesn't mean you're quitting. Steve Austin once walked out, but he came back, and obviously, like it changed things. But like, I hesitate to jump to conclusions or say like, oh, they're going to get released. Oh, they're going to do this. Like, I don't know.
For the people that are speculating that they'll go to AEW or something. First of all, if they do get released, it would be 90 days before you see them anywhere. So let's not jump the gun and say we're going to see him next week or whatever. And then another comment from Eddie, he says, do you think WWE will fine them for not being professional on their job? I don't think they'll be fined, and I don't think they'll be fired. But it's definitely an ugly and sticky situation because it's been publicized enough now where like it's you can't just act like nothing has happened here. I mean, let's talk about what Corey Graves said on air, that they unprofessionally left the building, and that to me seems like a line probably fed from Vince where, well, I'm gonna get you, you got me, I'm gonna get you. But the part that just doesn't get me, or I don't understand, is the whole releasing a statement halfway through Raw. That's unprecedented for them.
Yeah.
Like, why are they releasing a statement? I mean, the statement basically threw them under the bus. So I'd like to see where this goes in the coming days and weeks. Obviously, a swerve at the end. They had to do a main event. We had a 10-minute match that was pretty good at the end. We'll talk about that as well. But yeah, all the talking is going to be like this. And let's not, forget that they're both members of an already bad SmackDown women's division. So if you take out Sasha and Naomi, you're down to Ronda Rousey, Aaliyah, Raquel Rodriguez, Shotzi, and Natalia and Shayna Baszler. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's definitely not good. Now, I've also seen people commenting and saying, well, Sasha's fine. She can go to Hollywood if she wants to. But what kind of concerns me is if it's true that, Sasha and Naomi left, let's say they left. Well, Naomi usually travels with the Usos, and the Usos were still there because they did a segment at the end of the
Right.
show.
Right.
They're married. That could get ugly. Just the whole situation. And then, of course, you get Roman involved because he's in the family. It's like there could be a lot to go down here. And I'm interested to see what truly comes from the mouths of Sasha and Naomi because and you said you didn't we don't want to give away all of the Fightful report even though everybody's already aggregated it all over the internet, but
Right. Right. Right.
they mentioned that Sasha and Naomi were uncomfortable with two of the competitors in the 6-women match, even though it was said that both of these women have done ring work together
Right.
before
Right.
with no injury or consequence. So you can't help but to wonder the other women in this match being Becky Lynch, Doudrop, Nikki ASH, like, of course, speculation there. Becky tweeted like 10 minutes before she came to the ring and said, oh, all of the drama, but I'm still going to prevail.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see, what's going to come out of this.
That's just crazy. I keep saying that. There's no other way to like put it. Alex points out, I mean, yeah, as we've been saying, it's so rare to see WWE release a statement like this, especially like moments later, like minutes later during Monday Night Raw like this. You really never, and stuff that happens behind the scenes. This wasn't on the show. Like this wasn't like explaining something that happened or anything. This was like addressing the reporter, or in this case, the incident that that happened behind the scene. And he says, could it be work? You never know. You never say never. Again, but I gotta wait and see on that one. Oh man, I don't know. It's like, as you mentioned, I mean, this would be if this has any, even if they're gone like a week or two, like that's a pretty big loss for the SmackDown Women's Division, or just the Women's Division in general, because they are the Women's Tag Team Champions, so they go on both brands right now. Oh yeah.
Do you think, before we get into Raw, a quick question? Do you think this would be a good opportunity to kind of put the women's tag titles on the shelf, or retire them, or kind of basically put them on the back burner for now? Or do you think that they're going to have a immediate 2-on-2 match next week to crown new champs? What would you do here?
I mean, it sounds bad, but like,
or do you just keep under the impression that they're still the champs and they're just kind of missing in action as a way to kind of put them on the back burner? Or do you just come out and say, like, we're done with this? You know what I mean?
My opinion, based on what we saw tonight, based on Corey Graves calling them unprofessional commentary, as we said, as you said, that was very likely a line from Vince McMahon, as that's how it usually goes. I would be very surprised if they just like kept the title. Like if you mentioned like they would be the champions, but then maybe be missing for a while. Like no, like I feel like if they are going to be missing for a while, whatever that means, if they're going to be taking time off, if they're going to be suspended, I don't even know.
The new women's tag team champions is John Laurinaitis.
I don't know, man. Steven says, like, correct him if he's wrong. Did Sasha ask for her release last year? I don't know if it was. I think she had mentioned like. I think she did at some point. I don't know if it was last year.
There was a report that she did, and Vince said no and was going to give her 30 days off, but she ended up taking like 5 months off at that point. So
I think that was. I don't remember the timeline because Eddie points out, and you mentioned it earlier. Like this, she has a little, not history, but a similar thing happened back at WrestleMania 35. She and Bayley lost the women's tag team titles, ironically, and then she. But reportedly, like they kind of like I remember hearing they like laid on the ground crying or something, and then like Sasha was gone for a couple months. I think that may have been where she was gone for a while, and then she came back. I think that she returned as a heel, and that led to the role models, her and Bayley. But regardless, like, it sounds bad, but I honestly, this is a good reason to get rid of the titles. Like, again, that sounds harsh, but again, we talk about every single week. They only have right now, even with the champions, like 3 teams, which isn't great to begin with. And I feel bad saying, oh, just like scrap them entirely. But now we have this messy situation. We don't know how it's going to go. So I don't know. Even if you vacate them, then what? You're going to do a match with the two other teams you have, and then presumably what? Throw some more together.
At this point, Natalya and Shayna Baszler are realistically your only women's tag team in the entire company.
They're trying to do Doudrop and Nikki ASH to kind of feel.
But they were supposed to be competitors tonight,
Right.
So let's talk about the main event tonight, which ended up being Becky versus Asuka. And let's not forget that Nikki and Doudrop were left out to dry here. They could have turned it into a fatal 4-way if they wanted to, but they didn't. They just made it a 1-on-1. It was, like I said, a 10-minute match. The two have great chemistry in the ring. We can't deny that. It was actually a really good match given the circumstances.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would say Asuka won clean. She did the green mist as she's done before. Bianca was kind of involved whenever they got pushed into her, and nevertheless, Asuka wins the match. Hell in a Cell, not a Hell in a Cell match, but at Hell in a Cell, it's going to be Asuka versus Bianca Belair for the title. There was already people also speculating, does this mean Becky's going to go and now challenge Ronda on SmackDown because they need somebody over there? I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. I still think they're going to somehow make this a triple threat match. That's where my ducks are right now. Now,
yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, just for the match itself, and we can talk about anything else. But Brian says that Becky and Asuka had a great match. Really enjoyed it. Nesha says she's excited about Asuka versus Bianca. I agree that I have to think Becky will get involved here. Like, I would imagine she'd be off. That would be 2 pay-per-views in a row because she wasn't on WrestleMania Backlash. So, like, that would make a whole lot of sense. And then, like, it wasn't a super duper like controversial finish, but Bianca was kind of involved. Asuka did miss her, so she definitely has an excuse. And as Steven says, Becky could pull something somehow to get this into a triple threat match. I think that's the better match. And then you do maybe a singles match. I guess that would be at Money in the Bank after that. No, it's a good match. These two are always good together, so no complaints about that. More so just kind of the looming specter of the controversy about Sasha and Naomi here, and I guess to some degree some frustration about the 6-pack challenge. Like, that sounded like would be really cool. And I'm not to say like getting Asuka versus Becky's like a bad trade-off, but like, no, if you advertise that, like, I'm looking forward to that, and it didn't happen. So good match. Asuka winning, I think, is the right call. I mean, it's good to have her get built up right away. And again, I have to think this will probably. I mean, Nesha points that maybe they'll have the singles match here and do a triple threat match at the next pay-per-view. That's also possible. It would just seem weird to have Becky left off entirely, but if she is left off, that would be a good motive to have her interfere and set that up.
Yeah, but just the main event being as good of a match as it was, part of me kind of wonders, should they. I mean, from what we understand, I guess they didn't walk out till after they already advertised the match. I mean, at least I hope, because why would you advertise the match otherwise? And I guess at that point you have to address it on screen that what's going on, because part of me thinks, well, maybe they should have just waited and had this match the way it was and just forget about the Sasha stuff until, tomorrow. I mean, obviously they have to talk about it at some point, but I don't want it to take away from how good of a match this was, because it was a good match. And overall, I thought the show was actually pretty good. This news aside, now the women's division on Raw has been pretty good. And on top of, there was actually quite a bit of women featured tonight. I wanted to briefly to cover Lacey Evans, who is a new Raw superstar that is supposed to be a heel, but I think she's still coming across as like a face, or like just a military person that people don't want to boo. I don't know. Her promo was quite short, but short and to the point. Where do you see them? What do you see them doing with Lacey? Where does Lacey go next? Because
Well, it's weird.
somebody at some point somebody has to like interfere or make a statement or something.
It's weird because you said that she's like a heel that people don't really want to boo, and I'm not sure beat me to the punch here. Like I feel like they've been trying to set her up as a face, but now we're seeing some like pivoting toward a heel. Like the first several chapters of her story over on SmackDown, very very much babyface oriented. Like she's a military. She was in the military. She's a mom. She's talking about this tragic backstory about her life and her family. Overdoses, all these things. Robert and I talked about that several times on the SmackDown side of things. Now she's on Raw, and I guess in a way it would make more sense to have her as a babyface. No, sorry, as a heel with Bianca as the champion. So that you can kind of shake it up, not always have Bianca versus Becky and stuff like that. But everything about it almost right now save face, and even tonight, like it's weird because like she was introduced and the ring announcer was like, "Please welcome like mother." Military veteran, like all these descriptions. Lacey Evans was really kind of like to emphasize how, not to say how special she is, but just like it felt like a heelish thing to like kind of say that to have her introduced like that. The promo itself was pretty babyfacey. I mean, it was again talking about it felt very much like woman empowerment, which is a great message, wonderful. That's not a heel thing at all, unless it's like someone that maybe like Becky Lynch like twisting it and making it a different thing. For the sake of the storyline. This felt like a pretty general babyface thing, and she was getting cheered, as far as I could tell. So at least for now, it does seem like they are kind of rolling with it as a babyface character. And then with Steven saying, yeah, she could eventually be a heel, but right now it does feel like we are kind of leaning in this direction. It just feels like they're not entirely committed, which makes the viewers' experience a little more confusing. It's like, well, what are we really supposed to feel about it? DJ points out if they want to have her be a heel, you could go over the top with the military gimmick like Sergeant Slaughter did, whereas they're treating it more genuine with Lacey Evans.
Well, I also like the comment from Eddie implying that she could be in the Money in the Bank match. I think that would be a good, even if she were to win, I think that's just a good match for her to be in. It just would make sense to me. But from now until then, I mean, these promos, you can't just keep doing them every week. You got to introduce some kind of matches. The problem is, I guess you could do what they've been doing with Veer and bringing these local talents that she just squashes. But like, who wants to watch like the military hero just beat up on innocent people? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
to me, somebody has to confront her and challenge her, and it's not going to be somebody off the streets in a local market. It's going to be somebody like Dewdrop maybe or Nikki Ash, where she could be like, playing off the I'm almost a superhero, where Lacey Evans is like, well, I am a hero, I did serve, something
there you
like that.
go. There you go.
So
Okay,
see, I got my creative hat on
I
tonight.
like it.
And then finally, I think finally tonight, also in actual women's division, we had Sonya Deville and Alexa Bliss have a rematch. Alexa Bliss' new theme music, which by the way I'm fine with, even though I liked last week's new song better when it was a hybrid of the old
Yeah,
and the new. But they have a new song tonight, a vocal track actually. It was all right, but of course it's going to take some getting used to, like it always does. Alexa, of course, it was at least a longer and better match than last week. But Bliss wins again. Uh, there was a bit of an awkward misstep there, and at one part of the match there. Sonya and Alexa are trying to build this chemistry, but they've only been working together for what, 2 weeks now.
yeah.
I don't think they've done a lot of work together before. Now, I don't know what's next for Sonya. I have the impression that she's probably going to be relegated into the lower mid card of the women's division, unfortunately. Sort of like where we have Carmella, Queen Zelina, wherever she's at, something like that. Alexa Bliss, however, I think will continue to elevate. She's another contender I could see Money in the Bank. She has history with Money in the Bank. She's good in Money in the Bank, so that would make sense if they kind of wanted to revisit that. But what did you think of the match and the direction that they're kind of taking with Alexa here, giving her these wins to kind of build her back up to be a contender?
Obviously, very, very happy Alexa's back on Raw. Big fan of hers. Glad that she and Deville had more of an actual match this time. Like she returned last week and it was pretty much like a 10-second match. So like that was, I was happy to have more of a better chance to see both of them really in a match in this case. Glad Alexa won both times, and to see that she might be getting built up as a title contender, I think that's a good thing. Could that be Money in the Bank? I think she would be a good contender for it, especially because she really had before last week. She was gone for.
And who knows, because they've done. Are they going to do a 6 women? Or are they going to do 8 women? Like they seem to change their mind every year, so it's hard to say. I mean, you can't really have 4 from Raw and 4 from SmackDown. SmackDown really only has 4 women total right now. So like, what are you going to do?
Especially depending on what happens with Sasha and Naomi. So we don't see on that one. I like the idea of Alexa winning Money in the Bank potentially. So you're not rushing her into a title feud necessarily. Steven says maybe Rhea Ripley could win Money in the Bank. I think she's another good contender as well. Eddie wants to know my thoughts on the Alexa Bliss theme. Because John, you already said you thought it was pretty good, at least relatively for like a new theme. I mean, that's fine, right? I like the old theme. I like the one last week, as you mentioned as well, like kind of a hybrid. I thought that I saw like it definitely fits her. It's like that kind of punk, kind of feel like Avril Lavigne feel. So I get that. Seems to be kind of her personality from what we can tell. At least in real life, that seems what she's into. But no, I like the idea of Alexa winning the Bank. He says maybe we could get the title feud sooner though. Maybe that'll be the match at Money in the Bank. Maybe it'll be Bianca versus Alexa. I think she's got the track record to make that pretty easy to set up. Just kind of depends how the whole Asuka and Becky Lynch thing kind of shakes out from here on out. But Brian agrees maybe it'll be Alexa, 2-time Money in the Bank champion. For Sonya Deville, DJ says maybe give her Money in the Bank to kind of get back at corporate for firing her. I kind of like that idea. There's something fun about that. I think / am worried that we might see someone, and you were mentioning this yourself, John, about her kind of sliding back to like the lower mid card. And my first thought about that was like kind of like what we saw with Baron Corbin before King Corbin. Before that, like it seemed like he was kind of just like, I mean, not like languishing, but like that he was almost being punched into life for his authority role figure, and like both kind of in storyline and not like that. That, I mean, I know that's different because in some ways it feels like they kind of put the poor ratings on him, which is not really fair. But I don't know. I like the idea of Alexa either winning Money in the Bank or at least being built up somehow. So to be in a good position by the time that show comes. So a good match, and happy to see her back in winning ways on Raw here. We got, we might as well keep rolling with it. We were talking about the women's division, and DJ says we had Dana Brooke, Tamina, and Liv Morgan on the show, all in different ways. Dana and Tamina doing the same usual 24/7 title thing. They got the divorce papers. They served the divorce papers, in this case to Akira Tozawa. R-Truth wants his baby back. I feel like we're getting closer to getting there. But nonetheless, Dana Brooke ran away, bumped into Carmella. So Carmella seemingly back in the 24/7 title scene. Now, I forgot way back when in 2019, Carmella and R-Truth, they were best buds, and they're doing the 24/7 title scene. And that's what Eddie points out. Yeah, it was a nice reunion. Like, I totally forgot about it until they interacted. And I was like, oh, yeah, that was a thing. And they were like, Carmella's like, she was a former champion. They were always together, like trying to, pull some shenanigans for the title. So I guess a interesting, return to the past in that sense. Whereas the divorce drama playing out with Dana Brooke and Reggie, and in this case, Akira getting served. Not loving it. I don't have much more to say about it, but I guess the most way to take away, John, is the fact that Carmella is kind of back in the 24/7 title scene.
I guess. I mean, there's not really much else to do here. They've kind of exhausted all of their options with what they were doing the past couple months, so they have to turn a direction into something else now.
Yeah. So I will say, even though I don't always love the 24/7 title stuff, at least they like add new people, do it, and kind of shake it up. So it's like you only get a couple weeks of kind of the same thing, and then you get some new person here or there, just kind of differentiate a little bit. So good of them for that. But Carmella back with R-Truth tonight. So that's one kind of union we saw tonight, or a reunion, whereas I saw a union with Liv Morgan joining the Raw version of Bullet Club. So early in the show, the Lethal Lovers, Los Lotharios, approached Liv Morgan, wanting to help her out with the kiss cam. She turned them down. AJ Styles and Finn Balor kind of recruited her and said, hey, come to the ring with us for our match. And she said, she'll think about it. And then she did come to the ring with them for the match. And of course, we've seen AJ and Finn Balor do the 2 Sweet for the Bullet Club in recent weeks. They faced Lethal Lovers. fun match, pick up a win. I think Balor and Styles work well together. Big fan of both guys, so cool to see them as a tag team, at least for now. And after the match, Liv Morgan gave them the 2 Sweet, so she is part of this WWE brand Bullet Club. Moving forward here to wage war with Judgment Day, I guess.
Yeah, this is. I wouldn't go as far to say that she's joining the club.
She's joining forces with them at least.
Yeah, this is. They needed to have a 3-on-3 match, I assume, at the pay-per-view, which is, a nice touch. I'm surprised at how much Edge is still on TV. He's like become almost like a full-time character. Now that's fine. I mean, I'm fine with him only doing actually wrestling once a month, and if he wants to be a full-time character, otherwise, good for him, good for Priest, and good for Ripley, and just everybody involved here, really. Now, I'm not certain about this new member that Edge is teasing is going to join. I've been saying Ciampa. A report came out that is there a possibility that Finn Balor could turn his back on AJ and join, which that would be interesting too, because I've already been saying, this is going to end somehow, some way in the summer with Balor and AJ against each other, and this would be a way you could do that. But Rhea Ripley, it seems like if she's going to be a part of this, they need to keep her involved somehow also. And then DJ's asking, do you put the 3-on-3 in the cell? No, you do. You don't put this in the cell. The only match you put in the cell is Cody and Seth. And I thought maybe somehow, some way you could do the Bianca, Asuka, and Becky match in the cell, because usually you have one women's and one men, depending on what Ronda does. But no, nothing else goes in the cell. Just 1 or 2 matches tops. This definitely doesn't strike me as a caliber of a cell match, and I don't think necessarily Edge wants to do that right now. But yeah, Liv Morgan being involved because she kind of has to be for the sake of Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, obviously, and both Eddie and DJ Indigo pointed out, yeah, well, I feel like we will get at least a match between the 2 sides at Hell in a Cell. Probably not, maybe not Hell in a Cell, I just can't say probably. I would agree, it maybe doesn't feel like it's quite there yet. Maybe they'll have like a Street Fighter, some other gimmick match, like as the ball off play. I don't know if it's like quite time for Hell in a Cell. So I do think we're going to get a match, and I think it'll be good. As you said, good for everyone involved. Edge, I think, elevates everybody around him. So I think everyone here is benefiting from that. And for the other member here, I mean, yeah, I think Finn Balor would be interesting. I think a feud with him and AJ Styles would be great. I think both guys are awesome in the ring. A heel turn in this case for Finn Balor would definitely freshen up his character. I think he's been largely kind of squandered, I guess, on Raw in a lot of ways, or even on the main roster in general. So I think this kind of working with Edge would definitely be good for him. So I think at this point he'd be my pick. If they built up Ciampa a little more, I would definitely be rooting for him, and I still am. But I think it's could really, really do wonders for Finn Balor. So definitely liking the idea as well. Eddie says like the requirements of Judgment Day's long-term booking, kind of like of whoever's in the stable. So we saw like Damian Priest and Edge using their kind of motives for joining the group. Rhea Ripley as well. I think Finn Balor has a lot of good reasons to join the group. I mean, he could reference the mysterious rope snapping at Extreme Rules 2021, and how he's gotten screwed over a couple times. But I don't know. I like the idea. It's interesting, and people seem to be very happy for Liv Morgan here. Seems that it's be good for Liv Morgan joining with AJ and Finn, feuding with Judgment Day, and he still thinks Ciampa will join Judgment Day. I mean, that was reported, and Ripley and Ciampa were the people reported first, so I still kind of am inclined to think that might be the case, but plans change, pal. So I don't know. DJ says, what about someone like Cedric Alexander? I mean, Cedric's great. He's a very, very talented guy. I feel like he's like more, I guess that's just if not evolved, he's attached to the whole Bobby Lashley almost MVP thing right now. If that continues, I don't know, but at this point, like Edge even said, he opens his arms to anybody. Anybody could, in theory, benefit from this and join the group. I struggle to think like exactly how they might kind of connect those dots there. Whereas Balor makes a lot of sense. Ciampa, I mean, not to say that Cedric doesn't make sense, but we'll wait and see. I mean, I feel like we're gonna have to wait until Hell in a Cell for the new member to be revealed. Potentially, and that's still a little ways away. But speaking of Bobby Lashley and Omos, we had the show open with a steel cage match between Bobby Lashley and Omos. This was their third match here. They were tied after Lashley beat Omos WrestleMania. MVP helped Omos beat Lashley WrestleMania Backlash, but we had a steel cage match this time. Pretty good match. Can't really complain. MVP interfered a bunch and almost slammed Lashley through the cage wall. Literally tore the wall down. Lashley slid down the wall and very easily walked onto the floor to win the match to get a win.
This is like a repeat of the Brock and Roman match, I think, from Saudi Arabia. Or was that Australia? One of the two, but it was the same finish pretty much, which was interesting.
I think that recreated like the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1998.
Yes.
And they do the spot a bunch. Yeah.
Well, and a report came out today from WrestleVotes that said internally they were thinking about having this close the show where then the ring was going to collapse somehow at the end. And that's been played out for too long as well. So I like this direction better, even though it's also like repetitive. But this feels like a week ago because of, with what happened since that match with all the news that came out and everything. But the whole Cedric Alexander thing to me did not make sense. But then when Shelton Benjamin said he was hurt and out, then it kind of made sense because Cedric's kind of on his own. But MVP and Omos have said, we don't want you involved. But then he comes out and helps, and then they like praise him for helping. So to me, it's like a heat of the moment thing, and then he gets in. It was funny because he took that bump from the top of the cage on the floor, and the ref asked him if he was okay, and the camera picked him up saying like, "Yeah, I'm good" or something, as he was like about to lay down and act like he was passed out or whatever. But this wasn't the first time we've seen a finish like this, but it felt appropriate given how Omos dominated the whole match, but then he still loses. And now next week we're getting like another all-lady challenge. Wasn't the last time it was. Was it
wrestling contest?
Well,
right?
his idea was the arm wrestling contest, and then MVP and them wanted to do the cage. No, yes, they wanted to do. Lashley wanted the cage because MVP kept interfering, and now this is like the third time now he's going to issue a challenge. I'm hoping that it's not Hell in a Cell. It could be, but I'm hoping it's not. Stephen Chambers implying maybe that's the case. Eddie implying maybe MVP's involved in the handicap match. Somehow, some way, this will end in Lashley versus MVP in some kind of match, but we're not there yet. I think Omos needs to come out of this feud on top, but Lashley kind of has to get to MVP to have that match. Otherwise, within the match itself, it was a typical kind of a dominant performance from Omos, and then he kind of just screwed himself over in the end. It was funny because Lashley was laying on the cage, and Omos was just standing there. Like, he didn't know any better to leave the ring and win. Like, there was no ring awareness from Omos there at the end. So those were the key points there with Alexander getting involved, Omos dominating but then losing, and then the spear Lashley hit was also pretty good on Omos. He got the near fall. But the highlight or the end result of this is that it's not over yet. There's another challenge to come. This is going to last at least until Hell in a Cell in it's only 2 weeks away now, right? We have we have 2 more Raws until the next premium live event on June 5th.
Yeah, I mean, I have to think that we'll get at least another match out of this somehow, and probably for Hell in a Cell. I don't know what that would be necessarily, and DJ asked what we think the challenge will be. Other than, I mean, not that I really want to see it, other than, the Hell in a Cell match, and I could easily see this handicap match kind of thing. I don't know what else it would be. They did the arm wrestling thing. They just had a steel cage match. I don't know what else there really is to do. DJ says the tug of war. I mean, they could do some other like test of strength potentially. I could see it. I don't know if that's what I really want to see them do, but like they do that kind of stuff all the time. Some kind of like weightlifting contest. Like, remember when like Braun Strowman was like lifting trucks and stuff like that? Like I could see something kind of like that. I don't know. Or if the challenge itself could just be something related to Hell in a Cell. I think that would at least make a little more sense. Kevin Tylerson, maybe like a last man standing match kind of thing. Maybe it doesn't need to be a Hell in a Cell match necessarily. Then maybe that'd be a little redundant with the steel cage match here that we just saw tonight. Maybe some of the, as mentioned, Braun Strowman and the trucks. Eddie says maybe they could have like a pull the trunk match like we saw with Mark Henry years ago. I mean, yeah, both guys being very strong. That would make sense as well. But yeah, somehow getting MVP involved would make sense because that's obviously Lashley's goal. But inherently, the feud's weird because, as you mentioned, John, Lashley needs to win to kind of get built back up a little bit. Almost needs to win because they're trying to build him up as in the first place. So if Almost loses the feud entirely, it's kind of detrimental to him, but also to be detrimental to Lashley because it could be, a good chance to have him get built back up into a title contender. So ideally, both guys look strong coming out of it, but at the end of the day, only one guy can really win. So gotta wait and see how that plays out. But otherwise, here more ongoing feuds here on Raw. Theory, formerly known as Austin Theory, the United States champion, was supposed to face Mustafa Ali for a second week in a row. He brought out The Miz to be a special guest referee. And then he revealed that he didn't think that Mustafa Ali was worthy of facing him, so he wanted Ali to prove himself against someone else, and that someone else turned out to be Veer Mahan. So it's Veer Mahan's time to come on Raw yet again, and he faced Mustafa Ali with Miz as a special guest referee. Yet again, like last week, Miz screwed Mustafa Ali over. Veer wins, post-match selfie/beatdown, and then Rey and Dominic Mysterio return to the show for the first time for Dominic since April 11th, for Rey since the Raw after Mania. In both cases, both guys were put on the shelf, at least on the show, by Veer. So now we are clearly on track for a Mysterios versus Veer feud. So that's good. And for Mustafa Ali versus Theory, that seems to be kind of ongoing. And maybe eventually Ali will get a shot at Theory and ideally the title. But John, thoughts on Theory versus Ali here, or I guess /Veer and the Mysterios coming back?
Well, the segment/match kind of advanced two separate feuds, but I don't think either of them were in a meaningful way. The match was quick. The post-match fight/beatdown was barely that. Rey Mysterio was bleeding somehow, some way, and he was only in the ring for 5 seconds and kicked like his lip was like pouring blood. Like, how did that happen? And then Dominic came back. Look. You got clearly Ollie. I mean, and you should have known when Ollie came back, he was going to take a few losses, a few bumps. That's just how it goes. And he's done that. And at least it hasn't been to like a nobody. Like they're trying to build Theory up to be this big dominant force. And then The Miz is just kind of there, kind of like the heel character helping elevate Theory. Here's what I'm thinking is the fact that Ollie is from Chicago. Hell in a Cell is in Chicago. They're going to do Ali versus Theory for the title in Chicago to give Theory more heat, and then Ali's going to get his hometown pop, and he's going to lose. The Miz might get involved somehow. And then, of course, on the other side of the spectrum, you're going to have Rey Mysterio versus Veer also in some fashion, and then Dominic will be there as well. So those are two matches that we're going to build to. I think we've already built enough to at least the Veer and Rey Mysterio match. That has had enough of a build where you can have the match now. And make no mistake about it, Veer needs to win, I think. Veer needs to keep winning and looking dominant. The last thing you want to do is just have him lose all of a sudden after all this time. Ollie will lose. Ollie will not beat Theory. DJ saying Ollie won't lose. Ali will lose. Theory's not losing the title anytime soon. If anything, he might win by disqualification, but I feel like we've seen that so many times. And Michael says the same thing. He did not wrestle on main event. I forget the two matches on main event, but Rey was not in there. Something must have happened where he bit his lip or something on the way. I don't know, but it was like pouring blood. But that's neither here nor there. That's just something that I noticed because I mean, he had the blue mask on, and then his lip was like bright red, dripping. Yeah.
It's weird to think of some questions about Mustafa Ali potentially earning a title shot. I mean, Theory himself said tonight he didn't want Ali to lose his way into a title shot. So as we said earlier, and Eddie pointed out again, 2 weeks till pay-per-view. So if they want to do that match for the pay-per-view, which they may not want to because they don't necessarily prioritize having the mid-card titles on the premium live events at this point, which is a shame. But I think that would be a good match for the card. I would hope start to really kind of build up a little bit because right now, especially tonight, this feels like Dean Ambrose 2019 booking. He's like getting like not squashed, but like especially tonight, he was like beaten, attacked out for the match. Like, I don't know. I couldn't help but think that, especially with all the, the reports and him requesting his release and everything. Like, and he's back on TV now, but it's hard not to wonder, like, exactly some of the long-term plan here, I guess, in that case. But on the flip side of saying that Ali's not going to lose, Steven says that Theory's not going to lose, and I would agree. I mean, Theory is very clearly Vince McMahon's like pet project, or like the chose the next big thing. So I think he's very, very set, at least for now. So if they do have the match, even though it's in Chicago, I don't necessarily think that Theory's going to lose that one. We talk about this pretty much every week now, but it feels like if John Cena comes back for SummerSlam, he says definitely can have a big dream match there. At least for Theory, he's made it very clear he's a big fan of John Cena, so that'd be a pretty darn cool match. Here's what I'd like to see. I think that'd be very good for him.
I'll jump in real quick. I'm inclined to believe and think that we would get John Cena versus Drew McIntyre before Theory, but you never know.
That makes sense. No, because that's like a bigger money match in a way.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're more kind of drawn toward for a guy like John Cena right now, whereas like, yeah, because you got to kind of really capitalize as best you can when you get him. So I think that would make more sense in a lot of ways. And just talking about that, maybe that potential U.S. title match. But for this, I feel like Veer versus the Mysterios, or at least Rey Mysterio, feels like a pretty safe bet, at the very least for the Hell in a Cell kickoff, if they have a match on kickoff this time. I just saying maybe you could have Dominic turn on Rey, and then they split up. So, and then maybe even after that, send down to NXT. I've heard some rumors, at least, that the Mysterios might be splitting up at some point soon. That would definitely be one way to do it. To have this happen in this kind of feud. And I definitely agree this would definitely be a great way to build Veer up, because it's Rey Mysterio. So that'd be very good for him. And I hope to see that happen, because I think, at least they might as well try and capitalize on all the buzz they've got with him. So hopefully they do right by him, because he's got, so at least some buzz is still there. So otherwise here, more ongoing stories here. Kevin Owens remains A, a national treasure, and B, determined to prove that Ezekiel is not, or that Ezekiel is Elias. So Owens had the DNA test done on Ezekiel here. Chad Gable had the results. Unfortunately, the data was corrupted by Otis's barbecue sauce, so we will not know what those results were potentially going to say. Supposedly this will continue with some kind of other testing next week. They mentioned like maybe some ancestry test or whatever, but we had a match with Ezekiel and Gable. Good match. Ezekiel's good. Chad Gable's great. Owens is great on commentary. Very, very funny. Guy makes everything better. But good match with Ezekiel and Gable. And Steven says he would like to see Ezekiel versus Owens eventually. Now that'll be another good one for Hell in a Cell potentially. But you got to wonder about potentially loading up the card too much. We were talking about the Veer match, the U.S. title match.
It's all Raw, pretty much.
Yeah, this is all Raw so far. We even talked like who even knows about the SmackDown side of things so far. But thoughts on this ongoing saga with Ezekiel / Kevin Owens here?
I thought it was good, and I liked it at first, but now the more it goes on, the more like, for one, the more I'm like siding / agreeing with Kevin. Like, it's getting a little silly. Like, I think it's because I'm thinking more about the end game here. Like, obviously, it would be funny and cool if there was somehow, some way they could present Ezekiel and Elias side by side at the same time.
Yeah.
Without a hologram or a twin, which a hologram would be silly, and there's no twin. There would be the absolute shoot of the century if it actually wasn't Elias, even though it's definitely Elias, just with a shaved beard and no guitar. And the fact that it's gonna get like drawn out too far. I think it's already been over a month now that they've been doing this. They're gonna run out of ideas eventually. Like, something has to give, because obviously Kevin's not gonna quit until he knows he's right.
Right.
Which he is, obviously.
Right,
so like everybody knows he's right, and that has to happen somehow. And it's gonna be a match between the two. I could see either one winning, to be honest. The match itself tonight was pretty good. Ezekiel is good in the ring. He always has been. But when he was Elias, he didn't get to wrestle a lot because he was just singing to the crowd with a guitar. And Kevin Owens is obviously good in the ring. Chad Gable was very good in the ring as well. So we'll never truly know like what the capabilities are here because I feel like they're being somewhat held back because you have to hide the fact that it's really Elias, so you have to
Right.
kind of limit what you can do there. And but Kevin, anything he touches or does, it's gold, and it works, and it's fine. Uh, he's like, and I'm not comparing him word for word to Baron Corbin. I'm just saying that they both can take whatever they're given and make it work,
Yeah.
no matter what it is creatively or character wise, and they're both good at it. But I'm not convinced that this is going to end in a manner that makes everybody happy.
I agree, and I have to think, like you said, that they might kind of drag it out too long because I have to wonder, like as you mentioned, like what is the end game? And at this point, I'm like, I think it's fair to wonder whether they even know whether they know what it is themselves. Because like, yeah, on paper you start the storyline and it's fun, but like I feel like it might be kind of like the anonymous Raw GM back in the day. They may not know where it's going, and they're just kind of gonna try and wing it as they go, I guess, and kind of have it keep evolving somehow. But that makes it, I feel like, might make it a little harder to have it conclude in a satisfying way. Eddie says, you could do Ezekiel and Elias versus Kevin Owens and Ken Owens at Hell in a Cell. Oh man, I don't know about that, but you mentioned John like about somehow trying to get them both on screen at the same time. Somehow, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how it's all going to play out. Steven's agreeing, said they're gonna drag it out longer than the Sonya and Naomi feud, and that dragged out for months and months and months. I hope it's not that long, but gotta wonder that he probably has a point that we might be in for that. I mean, again, Owens is so entertaining that it's working for it's working to keep me entertained, and like at least like I'm not rebelling against it and not liking it, but. I do wonder what the point's going to be. And the weird thing is, as you said, like Owens is what he does turns to gold. He's the best part of the storyline, as Brian points out here. And the storyline's not really about him, which makes it like weird too. It's like, again, I feel like he's like kind of overshadowing Ezekiel in a way because like he's Owens is like the most entertaining part of it. And so there's something inherently weird about that to me. But I hope we get to see a match between these two at Hell in a Cell because we still haven't actually gotten. Other than I think they have a tag team match, like an 8-man tag a couple weeks ago on Raw. We have not gotten a singles match between these two guys yet. So at least kudos for them to holding off on that so far, because usually with most feuds they would have faced off like 5 times already. So I guess that's a win. But hopefully I think this will be a good match to have at Hell in a Cell, and I would look forward to it. But speaking of Hell in a Cell, lastly here, as widely expected, we will indeed see Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins in the Hell in a Cell match at Hell in a Cell. Cody made the challenge tonight for Hell in a Cell, talked about his road to WWE and I should say his road back to WWE and Seth Rollins' road to success, really, the way they've kind of followed different paths, and talking about how Seth has crossed the line. He insulted Dusty, Cody's father, and said, got to settle it one last time in Hell in a Cell. Seth responded, said he wanted to expose Cody and wanted to, again, to get revenge for Cody for taking a spotlight and everything that we've seen so far. And then Cody said, I'll see you in hell. So we have the stage has been set for Cody versus Seth 3. Hopefully the ball off of this feud. John, what are you thinking about this pretty exciting rematch for Hell in a Cell?
It's going to be the main event. I'm pretty certain of that. It has the feeling of a main event match that's going to probably tear the house down like the first two did. I would assume Cody will win again. He'll win all 3, unless they want to set up maybe his next feud and somebody comes out to screw him over. The promo was good. It was kind of his typical promo he's been doing since he's come back to the company. He had his own countdown clock when the show started. Basically to say, he'll come out at 10 o'clock. So they were periodically giving a countdown of how long until he comes out. They have absolutely pushed this guy to the top of the charts ever since he left AEW back in, was it January?
Yeah.
And then said, I'm coming back to WWE after 6 years, whatever it was. They have basically made him the biggest deal that they possibly can. I think it's to prove a point. I think it's to tell the AEW guys that if you come here, the grass is greener. We can make you look better. We can push you more. And hats off to him for doing it. I mean, they're paying Cody an insane amount of money. He's getting the biggest pops. He has the most fireworks, way more than Roman Reigns does. And I mean, without a doubt, he's going to be the champion at some point, you would think within the next year. And they are giving him basically whatever he wants. They're promoting the whole show around him. The poster for the next pay-per-view has him front and center. He's doing the promotions for Money in the Bank. He's done the video advertising for that as well. So he's clearly the guy now. Like, I'm not taking anything away from Roman because he's the guy, but Cody is like the guy on Raw and basically the next man up.
Yeah.
And he's good at it. He proved in AEW he could put on a good match and a good promo. He just got himself into some sticky situations with booking and losing, and it was time for him to go. And I think it was, he comes back to WWE, and he's the top merch seller. I think he might have passed Roman. I think he did.
I think so.
He's the number one merch seller now in the company, and he ended the promo by saying, "I'll see you in hell." Obviously, Hell in a Cell. So, in my eyes, he wins that, and then the possibilities for him are to maybe win Money in the Bank, at least beat Money in the Bank, or I don't see him challenging Roman yet. At the earliest, I would think it would be SummerSlam.
Yeah.
But with the way they're promoting the Roman and Drew for the UK Stadium show, part of me thinks that maybe they're going to hold off on Cody until after that, unless somehow he loses to Roman, maybe with DQ or whatever. But that's where I'm standing with Cody right now. He is going to be a big deal for at least. I mean, I think he signed was a 3-year contract or 4 or
I
something.
don't remember the exact terms. I know he just said it's a multi-year deal,
and it's full time the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be a big deal for the foreseeable future, pretty much.
Yeah, bunch of comments about Cody here. Eddie says he thinks he'll be the end of the feud. It'll be a brutal match, probably the main event. I mean, Roman Reigns currently not advertised for Hell in a Cell. Originally he was, and they made the new poster with Cody front and center when Roman was pulled from the advertising. So it looks like Roman will not be there, in which case it would make sense to have this match be the main event potentially. I think would be a good one. And again, likewise, Steven's saying hopefully this will win the feud. Doesn't see Cody losing either, so that seems like a pretty safe bet. DJ Green and Cody will champ soon. More thoughts about maybe the Money in the Bank here. Eddie says Cody and Seth could be the Money in the Bank, but not feuding. Kind of have that, like, the recent feud in everyone's memory, but then not have the feud be active anymore. I like that idea. And Steven says he definitely thinks Cody's going to win Money in the Bank. I think that's a fair prediction at this point. I think it's great. Obviously, crazy things have happened. Just as we talked about both on this show and the SmackDown side. I wonder what the timeline will be in terms of, like, you mentioned maybe not SummerSlam, maybe after that. Well, a lot of moving parts. You mentioned the Drew McIntyre match as well. Kind of, they have options, which is good, especially with with Roman potentially working last shows. I can draw it out even more. But then I wonder about what Cody's next feud will be. If they need like some, maybe even multiple to get him from Seth to Roman. That's if they need to fill out some time. So we'll wait and see on that one. Maybe Kevin Owens, that'd be a good option as well. But yeah, the way Cody's been presented, Brian says he's like WWE's new Cena. I don't know if I go that far, but at the very least, right now, he's definitely being framed as the top star on Raw, and that is very, very clear. So again, hats off to him and hats off to WWE for the way they've been presenting him. So it's a win-win so far. DJ wondering what do we see happening first, MJF to WWE or Cody as a champion? Well, MJF's contract is up in 2024, so I have to think Cody's got to be the champion by 2024. Like, I would say WrestleMania 2023 at the latest. Like, I don't think we're going to wait all that long for Cody to win the title.
Yeah, to me, that's an easy one. He'll be champion before, and unless he gets released or something, which I don't see happening. But
No.
Yeah, that Cody as champ will happen first, and that's to be expected, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that seems pretty clear. Just again, a matter of timing, really. But lastly, here, not much to say other than it was a good match. Riddle picked up a win over Jimmy Uso. Now we learned on SmackDown we will have the tag title unification match on SmackDown this week. Robert and I both think there's going to be some kind of schmaz finish that they're going to try and probably draw it out to Hell in a Cell. But John, I guess not even necessarily the match we saw tonight, but more so on the Raw side of things. It's obviously relevant. You know, your thoughts on the tag title unification that we will see at least the first time on SmackDown this week.
Should be good. I'm wondering if it'll be a clean match or if it'll end in DQ or if something sour is going to happen or if we're legitimately going to, unify these this weekend. I think it's hard to say. I think we just have to wait and see. Tonight's match was good. It was kind of a repeat of what we've seen with these two teams the past couple weeks, but I think hopefully this Friday we get an answer to who's going to be the team moving forward, and I think we all have a hunch of who it's going to be. At least I do. You probably agree, but we'll see how they make it happen. But I think that 6 titles are in store for the Bloodline.
I agree. I just don't necessarily see it happening on SmackDown. I have to think they're going to draw it out more again, especially if Roman does not compete at Hell in a Cell. I am saying Roman could interfere in the tag match on Friday. Steven says you have the Street Profits interfere and do the triple threat at the Hell in a Cell. Or what Eddie's saying again, you could have Roman interfere and then have a Hell in a Cell match, maybe. But again, I feel like they're going to be a little selective about what does get the cell. We already know it's going to be Cody and Seth. So, I mean, in that case, I don't know what else they would do. So I feel like that's like an option. It sounds like we're in agreement. But yeah, the Usos are probably going to win when we do get that clean finish, just whenever that might be. But right now, I'm definitely thinking it's going to be some kind of wonky finish on SmackDown and draw it out. So I'm kind of bracing for that. But I think it'll be a good match, especially when actually we get the finish. And again, I'm assuming that'll be the pay-per-view. As I'm saying, they should have Solo Sikoa interfere. I don't know about that. I don't know what. I mean, I do think he'll join the Bloodline at some point. I just don't know if Friday's that day. Obviously, it still feels like he's definitely in the prime of his run on NXT, and he's doing great down there. But when he does join the Bloodline, I'm sure it'll be good for him and the Bloodline as a whole. So another win-win. But I'm looking forward to that tag match on Friday. And again, yet another comment. We're all seem to be in agreement. It's going to be some kind of DQ finish, and then it'll be maybe the Hell in a Cell match at the pay-per-view or premium live event. Seems like a pretty safe bet. But that was one of many things we had in the works here tonight on Raw. So all in all, John, what do you think about the show here, all things considered?
Thought it was pretty good. There was obviously a distraction with that news that came out, but I'd give it an average 7. Pretty average show with some solid build, but obviously there's distractions that are there that you have to just try to put in the rear view mirror for at least tonight, and they'll probably resurface tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I would agree. My gut response is like 7.1. And most of that's like I was a little distracted by all the Sasha Banks and Naomi stuff and trying to cover that and stuff like that. So like not being able to fully enjoy the show itself. And some other things here and there I didn't exactly care for, but not a bad show by any means. Steven says a 7.5, Brian with a 7 as well, Eddie with a 7.2. And he's referencing their rumors for the Roman Reigns side of things. Maybe we'll have Randy and or Riddle challenge Reigns. If not Hell in a Cell, maybe that'll be Money in the Bank after that. I think Randy versus Roman would be a great match for Money in the Bank. That's definitely a big stadium show kind of match there. So I like to see that. And they've got plenty of time to build it up. So that'd be fun. DJ, not a big fan of the show, saying it's 4.3 for us tonight. I thought it was fine. That was a pretty solid show. But as always, everyone's more than welcome to disagree. Hopefully it'll be better next week. Michael's with a 7.5. But damn, Sasha. Like, I guess I'm more reading that saying it's an unfortunate situation. Or at least a upsetting / disappointing situation. And Kevin with a 7.7 as well here. So I would say it seems like by and large fairly slightly above average to above average shows. So can't be too upset about that. Other than again some of the outside of the show controversy. But hopefully we'll have more information about it soon because it's pretty crazy. But otherwise here, John, you and I you're back here. So we're doing Raw every Monday for the Raw post show. NXT 2.0 Tuesday night. We'll be here now. It's already Tuesday, so Tuesday night for the NXT post show. The Diamond Dudes on the Rampage. Marcus and Dominic cover all things AEW. Robert and I cover SmackDown schedule printing on Friday. Otherwise, great stream of interviews constantly with you guys. We've got some really exciting stuff in the works and lots of stuff already in the archives. So make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. John, with that being said, We all come here together to do one thing above all others, and can you tell me what that is?
Enjoy wrestling.
Indeed. Thanks for listening, everybody.